Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to the Way of Truth number 51. My name is Artem Boytsev. I am a spiritual teacher, and this is my website. If you're interested, please check it out. It contains a large collection of my writings on the topic of spiritual enlightenment. And in this broadcast, I provide guidance, answer questions from my students. Not only my students, it is an open broadcast. It's aired on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So if you are watching, welcome. Thank you for coming. It's good to have you. The best way to participate in this broadcast is live. So I will now post a link as I usually do. It's a StreamYard link. It's also posted in the description on the event on YouTube and Facebook. And there we go. So I just posted it here. So this is a StreamYard link. If you follow this link, I'll be able to bring you on screen and we will have a conversation. So it's a browser-based software. You just need a browser and a webcam, nothing else. And this is by far the best way because it will give me more information. I will be able to ask you questions. But if for whatever reason you don't wish to do that, you can also simply post comments to YouTube and Facebook, and I'll be able to bring them on screen just like that and address them. So also, if you are watching it on Instagram, please be advised that the maximum length of live video on Instagram is, as far as I know, 1 hour, and this usually runs a little bit over that. So welcome again. We have some guests, so before I do that, I wanted to share that just 1 week ago, I came back from our fifth, I think, or maybe sixth, I don't quite remember, retreat in Northern California. It was a phenomenal retreat. It was a beautiful, beautiful gathering. Each time we make retreats, we get better and better. Katya, my amazing wife, who is in charge of social media and also in charge of organizing our retreats, are getting better and better at organizing them. We tried different workshops. It was by far the best retreat. The feedback we get from people was also phenomenal. Everybody was deeply touched. Everyone cried. Everyone had some openings. It was just an absolutely beautiful, gorgeous event. I love my retreats and I enjoy tremendously the sight of people working through their pain, the sight of people opening up to love, witnessing the laughter, witnessing the relaxation, seeing how over the course of a few days everyone becomes more and more open and more supporting of each other and more relaxed. It was just a place filled with love and appreciation, understanding of each other. And if you have never been to my retreats, I highly recommend you go. Most of the people that had the pleasure of attending say that it was a transformative experience and oftentimes a turning point on the spiritual journey. So we will have the next retreat in Europe. We don't know exactly where. It might be either Finland, but we're also considering other options such as France, just like we did last year. So if you're in Europe, it's going to happen in July, and the next retreat in Northern California will be in fall. So in Northern California, we have a gorgeous place with a lake, lots of acreage. And in Europe, we don't yet know the place, but it will be beautiful. It will be nice. So if you want to be notified about future events like this, please either contact Katya on Discord or email us at info@truefreedom.org. So I also just posted it in the comments. So here. And when we finalize the dates, we will send you an email. Okay. By the way, speaking of the Discord community, if you wish to join a Discord community, you can also follow that link. And you just need a real picture and a real first name, but you don't have to reveal your last name, and we will let you in. So let's see, we have some guests. Okay, we have Tilak, Joe, Prometheus. So let's start with Joe. Okay, let me bring Joe on screen. Hello, Joe.
Hi, Artem.
Hi.
So it's my first time speaking to you, but I've long consumed your content and read your answers, and it's been extremely helpful for me on my journey. So thank you very much for all of that.
I'm very glad.
So the question that I have is about being and non-being.
Mm.
And I wanted to ask, is it right that the state of non-being is arrived at after self-realization when the entirety of all of the ego's aspects have been expressed to completion, and there's no resistance left to any sort of character of the ego? So every aspect of like rage, hurt, all of these things have been expressed to their full extent, and there's no more sort of characters or aspects of the ego left to express. I suppose leaving a state where there's nothing left, so that would be like non-being as I perceive it.
Yeah, I think it's a fair description. I think it's a good description. And I like it very much how you describe it when you say when as all aspects of the character of the ego were expressed and accepted, and the pain behind those traits and characters was also expressed and accepted. Uh, the description that you have provided can also be applied to the state of full enlightenment. Uh, on the subjective phenomenological level, uh, the one goes through a certain kind of stages that feel very different with regards of their identity, and the expression and the exploration of the remaining character traits, as you described, of the ego, and the remaining pain and unconscious pain and suffering of the ego happens kind of in tandem through with going through those stages. So the stage of identifying with being is basically the stage of appreciating life. So people say, I'm not the ego, I am awareness, I'm consciousness, I'm being, I'm life itself. And it comes before the stage of appreciating death. It comes before the stage where a kind of a transcendental awareness is discovered, and people start saying, I'm not here, I'm not even here, right? And subjectively it oftentimes feels like, whereas in the stage of being it feels like you are life itself, life moves you. In the stage of non-being, when you're consumed by the void, when you're consumed by the emptiness, it feels like there is no control at all, things just happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting part about those stages is that you can have a rather long stage of associating with being, and then as you keep working through the remaining unconsciousness and the remaining expressions, as you put it, of the ego, you can jump into the transcendental awareness and have some time where subjectively it feels like things just happen, and you don't exist at all.
Hmm.
But but as you continue the path and as you continue the practice, and the remaining egoic things get uncovered, you can actually revisit the appreciation of life, and you can revisit the appreciation of death, and you can kind of switch between those stages, and each time get a deeper appreciation of both the beauty of life and the emptiness, the meaninglessness of death. So it could happen that kind of you revisit those stages many, many times. And at the end, it's actually also seen that being and non-being are one and the same. So,
Yeah.
at the end of the spiritual path, well, you can put it in ordinary language, like there is no life without death, and there is no death without life. So at closer to the end of the spiritual path, you no longer fluctuate between being and non-being. They kind of almost always seamlessly present. And so uh, the kind of what exactly the stage you're in is not a very important question, because there are people who spend a significant time identifying with being, and then a very significant time identifying with emptiness, being consumed by the emptiness, identifying with the I'm not here, I don't exist. And then there are people who go through a kind of a rather small circles and then revisit it again and again and again and again, and again go deeper into the sense of being, then go deeper into the sense of non-being, because they are both aspects of the whole, you
Hmm.
see. What you absolutely nailed, though, is the expression of the remaining traits of the ego.
Yeah. That
That
seems.
is absolutely true.
Um,
And the interesting thing about this is that it may appear phenomenologically as expressing or accepting your own traits as well as the traits of other people.
yeah.
So, in kind of a Jungian terms, the collective unconscious, or in Freudian terms, the superego, this kind of conglomeration of other
Yeah.
characters that the ego exists within, are also created by the mind, and they also are expressed and felt. And sometimes it feels like you kind of literally merging with other people. You're not merging with them physically, but you're merging with them psychologically, because all the distinctions are the psychological distinctions. Like, I'm better than you, that means you're worse than me.
Yeah.
You see, I'm this, that means you that, and you kind of get to you get to explore. If you have a dominant side, then you also will get to explore the submissive side, and it may come as an expression of your own experience, or you may kind of feel into how it feels to be other people, and but it's still phenomenologically, energetically, not a trivial thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So the context is always within a whole. So if there's one, one aspect that I'm feeling or that's coming up as a part of my ego expression, it's opposed to or within the context of its opposite, which
Yes,
is yeah,
precisely. Yes, each dimension of the ego exists in two polarities, right?
yeah, yeah,
You personally may have taken one, but that means that the other is dormant in the unconscious, and as it gets exposed, you may feel like, in some people, right? So empaths, for example, you may feel like you're feeling someone else's feelings, but it's actually also
yeah.
uh,
Of course, yeah,
the opposition, the part that was suppressed.
yeah,
Whenever we go into one direction, we suppress the other.
yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Um, I had another question, if that's all right.
Yep.
So within your teachings, obviously, you focus very much on the emotional path and the expression, feeling of emotions, which are placed front and center. And that's been my experience of the path as well, as it's very much a bodily feeling, expressive path with realizations coming almost as a byproduct of that.
Yes.
Very, very much intertwined.
Yes.
Um, and that's very rare, as you're well aware, that within the wider teachings, it's very seldom the focus of teachings. And I
True.
wonder, is it even possible to go very far into dissolving the density of the dream state, or however you want to say it, without doing that? Because
No.
no,
No.
exactly. That's that
It's
would
not.
no. But how do you account for it being discussed so infrequently, or um, I know it's a big question, but it seems so. I couldn't imagine having done any of this without it being so clearly the yeah, the physicality of it, and the emotional, the emotional aspects of it.
It's
It
it,
being
it Oh, so excuse me. I thought you were finished. Yes, please
no,
continue.
no, I was just trying to tie it together, but I've said everything.
It is basically for the same reason. Your question, how do you account for that? It's basically for the same question as how do you account that there are very few authentically enlightened people teaching, or how do you account for the fact that kind of feel good spirituality is much more popular
Yeah,
than real spirituality. And religion is a kind of a prescriptive form of spirituality, which is quite significantly distorted, is much more popular than even any authentic spirituality, regardless of how deep it is. It's the same phenomena, and I understand it because you see, when I attained self-realization, I was also convinced. I had a very deep conviction that there's only one thing to get, right. So it's like anyone who would get that, oh, okay, you don't exist as the ego. So the ego doesn't exist. The
yeah,
ego is just a formation within consciousness. It's just a thought process which you have clung to with your attention. If you just get this is just one thing, you just get one thing, and then you'll be happy. It was actually very naive. I was later shown that there was so much more to it. There's so much unconscious pain. There's so many tears. There's so much compassion. And then later, it became absolutely obvious to me that 90% of the path, like even maybe even more, is about that. Most of the path is about uncovering and dealing with in a compassionate, loving way with the suffering of the ego. And you cannot uh, let go of anything that has not yet been seen, that has not yet been explored, that has not yet been acknowledged.
yeah,
And so it became completely obvious. And as I also continued using the psychedelic medicine, right? And that's precisely also the reason why many teachers don't use psychedelic medicine, because when they do, then it will be shown to them how much there's still of the egoic suffering is left.
yeah,
So it became apparently completely clear, and so I started looking at the whole thing very differently. For example, I realized that the only reason that it happened, the only reason that I was able to make this realization, to detach from the ego, which I thought was the most important thing,
Mhm.
is that I was quite emotionally mature, and I was ready for the emotional work that would come later. And if I wasn't, it just wouldn't have happened. And so, luckily, kind of back then, no one listened to me, right? So I was never a very popular character, right? So in the dream state, you can be sort of smooth and popular and have a lot of friends, and if you make
Yeah.
realization from that place, and then you start talking about awareness, you write some books, you can get a mass following. That's actually how most very popular teachers are born. And of course, I
Yeah.
also tried to do that, but I was kind of harsh with words and somewhat brass at times, and I was never a popular character in the first place. So I was more of a social reject than someone smooth. So no one listened to me, and I had to go alone to deeper and deeper stages, and so. So it's very kind of normal. It's very natural. It's actually also much easier. You like if you only point to awareness and you also amass a large audience, then your whole philosophy is very simple. So I respond to all questions in pretty much the same way. Like, have you tried to find this who suffers? Or like there are no problems and things like that. And then it can be quite actually maddening for the ego, and it quite be quite confusing for the mind. And those people who get to this point, those people who are already open and receptive, make the realization after being exposed to that, and those people are usually quite a minority. And those who don't, I mean, you just say, okay, so they're just not ready to hear it, and so you have a large audience of which there is a small minority that really benefit from this direct pointings. I mean, I'm not trying to uh, diminish the value of direct pointings. There are direct pointings are extremely valuable, extraordinarily valuable for people who are on the cusp, for people who are close to making the realization. They're extremely valuable,
Yeah.
but they are of pretty much of no value to people who have to go through a lot of emotional work to get to that place. And that's why the success rate of most people are very, very low. Of most teachings that just do direct pointings are very, very low, right? And but nevertheless, I mean, they work, they attract people, and that's why I don't generally do that. So I generally of the conviction that we must work with the energy itself, with the emotional energy, and it has benefits whether you are in the dream state or already out of it, before realization or after realization. Before realization, we're developing what can be called emotional maturity. You are changing your life. You are becoming more independent from others. After realization, the emotional work acquires a lot of different flavors. It acquires tremendous depth, but it's still the same work. 90% of the path is energy work, and there are some teachers not as well known that focus on energy work, shadow work. Those are actually the real fighters that help people to work through the difficult stuff.
Yeah, it's very rare, and I've definitely had the same experience of realization itself absolutely not being the point, and um, even after that point, seeing so much of the suffering or the repression, and not being able to reconcile. Well, surely this couldn't be an end point because there's all of this that's still so blatantly present. Um, yeah, I had one more question,
Sure thing.
and that's about. I just wanted to ask about the experience of romantic love in the natural state.
Mm.
So and you're the only person I can ask this question to, um, as there's no needing to fill any sort of voids, or the typical reasons people look for things like romantic relationships um, in the dream state. How would you describe the difference between romantic love in the dream state and in the natural state?
It's a tremendous difference. I could even say that I do not experience romantic love the way that it
Mhm.
is experienced in the dream state. So in the dream state, uh, the love for the other is always tainted with how the other makes you feel,
Yeah.
with what you get back
Hmm.
from the other.
Yeah.
That's actually not love. I mean, that's why romantic love is not really love. There's a level of love underneath,
Yeah.
most certainly. But what's unconscious, what is mostly on the conscious level is possession.
Yeah.
I need this person. This person belongs to me. It is very important to me to have this person. The true love is joy and appreciation. And in good relationships, the true love, of course, is also present. So the true love is you are happy when another person is happy. It is joyful to do something for them. You appreciate every moment, whether they are having a good day or a bad day, like whether they in a good mood or not. It maybe if they even angry with you, but you are enjoying the process, which is another person, and you love every aspect of it. Of course, in again in good relationship, this is also present, but it is significantly covered, let's say, by the focus on how I am going to feel as a
Hmm.
result of this relationship, right? Instead of just enjoying or doing something for the other person. So the best comparison I can make is a love for the child. So if
Yeah.
if you have a small child, like 5 years old,
Hmm.
something like that, 3 years old, then you're not getting anything in return yet, right? So
Hmm.
all your sense of love towards this child is just based on what you can give, and also the appreciation of the beauty of this living being itself. Witnessing it, seeing it grow, seeing it cry, seeing it laughs, and caring for it. So it's a very kind of different form of love. That's actually real love.
Yeah.
Real love is selfless. Real love uh, is appreciation. That's the best that I could put it in words. It's appreciation. It's like looking at a flower and appreciating its beauty. So in the same way, you can look at the person and appreciate their beauty, their ingenuity, all that is human about them, their body, their face, their smile, their smell. But you're not concerned about how the behavior of this person makes you feel, just like you're not concerned about how the behavior of a 3-year-old child makes you feel. Not to kind of compare the person with a child from a developmental point of view, but in from the phenomenological point of view, right?
Yeah. So it's just a clean appreciation, as in
Yes,
untainted by.
yes, exactly. It's like uh, in the dream state. If they did something or said something that make you feel bad, then you're gonna stop loving them for a period of time, right?
Yeah.
So just like it doesn't happen with a very small child,
Hmm.
that's why I'm comparing it, right? So just like it doesn't happen with a very small child or with an animal, right? Because because
Yeah.
because your goal with a very small child or with an animal is not to get some pleasure from them, but to understand them, right?
Yeah.
So like for example. Uh, your cat hissed at you. You don't stop loving it. You try to understand why this happened.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. So it's a very different kind of approach to people. It's an understanding, and compassionate, and forgiving approach, rather than what do I get from this individual.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a really wonderful explanation. Thank you.
Which by the way, does not mean to say that that you equally appreciate all people. Of course, that's not true. Like I have bottomless love for my wife because we've been through so much together. She's done so much for me. I've done a lot for her. We are partners. We know each other very well. Of course, there's a different level of appreciation, but on the level of like, if you woke up in a bad mood and said something to me, now I feel bad and I am angry at you, or bitter at you, or I don't like you, or that just doesn't happen.
Hmm.
There's no need in this love. There's just joy, enjoyment of another person.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you, my friend. All right, so we'll see. We have a person called Prometheus. Let's bring him up. Okay, let me, sorry, hold on up. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi. So, all right, my question. All right, so consciousness,
Mm,
infinite,
mm.
realizations. Does that mean since consciousness is infinite, that the realizations are also infinite? And if they are, is there an absolute consciousness, or is it just all infinite? And is there a such thing as spiritual plateaus? Or is it just infinitely deeper realizations and there's no like one absolute realization, so it's just infinite? Is it just all come down to infinity? And like, what exactly are we doing here then if it's just infinite?
I personally don't think that the realizations are infinite. Uh, the 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 realizations are rememberings. They are what you remember on the way back home. So the every realization is a reversal of something that you thought was true before.
It's
That
like a recognition.
ex, 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 yes, and it's also necessarily a falling away of a falsehood, right? Like, for example, you thought you were ego, now you realize you're consciousness. Or in a much more personal way, you thought you were unworthy and undeserving of love, and now you realize that you've always been worthy, you've always been deserving of love. You thought you needed this substance or some kind of coping mechanism, and then you realize that you've only been doing this because you were in pain and you were trying to escape, run away from your pain. Or you thought you like, speaking of romantic love, like you thought you really needed this person and that this was love, and then you realized this was need, and based on your insecurity and the delusion that you needed exactly this exact person, only they can make you happy. So every realization is a dropping away from something we imagined to be true, which is not true,
mm,
and we imagine
so
it
it's
to be
not a
true.
gain, it's a like a
It's a back to truth, it's a back to yourself. Yes, it's a so this veil that hides consciousness is the veil of untruths, and the untruths are there to protect you from the pain, or to explain the pain, or to justify the pain of separation, the pain of carrying false beliefs, the pain of
okay, that
believing
makes
things that are
sense.
not true, you see.
So it's not like you're gaining a recognition or realization. It's a dropping away of some.
That's precisely right. Right. It's not
Oh,
like you
okay, I get it.
gain. It's not like you're gaining anything.
Oh,
You
okay.
drop away the lies and what was always there. So every authentic realization, I oftentimes say that every authentic realization has this flavor of, wow, I've always known this to be true. Always. I was just lying to myself. I was just in denial. You see. So if you look at it this way, then the path cannot be infinite, because
Mm-hmm.
there's a finite amount of things that we lie to ourselves about. There's a final amount of ignorance, right?
So what about spiritual plateaus?
Uh, so uh, the thing is, even though I do not think that the path is infinite and the realizations are infinite, the thing is, in practice, very few people get to the place where the realizations that are still happening, and I cannot even say about myself that I'm not still getting some value, like a limited value, but I'm still getting some value from, for example, significant doses of psychedelics. There's still some value,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's subtle. It's subtle. So if
Okay.
it's like if in the beginning it was absolutely profound, life changing, it very much changes my whole personality, my everything about me, basically the way that I behave, the way that I view life, the way that I relate to other people, everything was profound, 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 and then it becomes more and more and more subtle.
Ah, okay.
So do I think there's a point when there are like no new realizations at all? Actually, I do, and
Really?
yeah, yeah, because I think that's also the point where the dreams completely disappear, including night dreams, and psychedelics stop working, right? So I'm kind of
Damn.
so I'm kind of very close to that point, right? So uh,
How do you how can you feel that you're close to a point? How do you feel that?
well, you take like 10 types of acid and pretty much nothing happens.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, uh, but I cannot tell the future in the strictest sense of the word, right? So I can only look at my past, right? So if I look at my past and I like I cannot make statements. I would not realize anything in the future, or like this is the final and complete enlightenment. Like if you look at the statements honestly, then both of those statements are statements about the future, and I don't know the future.
Hmm.
All I know is my past, right? So if you look at your own past and you can say, okay, in the last like year, like there are no triggers. It's extremely equanimous, and like even if you take a large dose of psychedelics, there's very little that comes up, even though something still comes up. You can say,
Wow.
well, okay, this is like this is really this is really close to as far as it goes.
How can you even handle that? How can you even ground that?
You don't need to ground that.
You don't need to ground your insights,
No,
your subtleties that you gain. You don't need
no.
to embody or integrate.
Oh, this. Okay, so embodiment or integration happens after gaining an intellectual insight, right? So after gaining some insight, and it happens through energy and emotional work. Like
Mm.
for example, let's say you meditated for a very very long time, or you like took some psychedelics, and you uh, understood that you thought that you were undeserving, and you thought that there was something wrong with you, but in reality you were always worthy, and there was nothing wrong with you, and you got this insight on a very kind of a deep level. So what's going to happen afterwards is that as you start embody this insight, you will probably cry a lot,
Mm.
because it is extraordinarily sad, and you will cry about your past self, who thought that they were undeserving, who thought that they were unworthy. uh, the body is going to start feeling differently. So there will be some quite significant amount of emotional and energy work that were dormant kind of in the body, suppressed by this. And now they will work its way through the body, right? So when one is kind of, in the context of our conversation, kind of close to the end of the spiritual path, then then there is very little emotion. There is very little integration to be done. So the insights are very, very small, right? So for example, the insight of I hated myself and now I love myself is a completely life changing insight. It can take years to integrate. It can take
Wow.
years to really understand in all of the ways in which you were denying yourself, all of the ways in which you were self-rejecting and self-hating, and if you lived like this, like let's say for 40 years, and live very differently, it will take years and a lot of emotion.
Okay.
But if
Do
there's
you
like
think we will always be healing?
what's that?
Do you think we will always be healing?
No, no. I mean, as I say, it's the same question. It's the equivalent question of is the path infinite, right?
Oh,
So
okay,
the
okay,
path
okay.
and healing is the same thing, right? So once there's very little healing to be done, like like I could take like for example 8 tabs of acid, and the only thing that I would realize is that okay, so maybe like I was a little bit of an asshole, like to somebody like 5 days ago, and then like cry about it for 20 seconds, and then that's it. It's done. You see, there's nothing else. So when you have very very little conditioning, very little lies in your mind, very little self deceit, and very little suffering, then the process of excavating remaining suffering gets subtler and subtler and slower, and even large doses of psychedelics don't do much. When you have
Wow,
a
okay.
lot of suffering, right, then you get fireworks, you get tremendous, profound,
Mm,
life-changing realizations. And if you have a lot of suffering, then such a such a huge dose, like 10 times of LSD, I don't recommend anybody doing that. It will be an absolutely intense, you cannot even describe it in words how intense this experience can be. It can be extraordinarily traumatic. It can be very,
wow.
very, very, very scary, extremely scary. It can be so intense that you might, be thinking about this for decades, and you might
Oh,
swear
wow.
off using psychedelics ever because you've seen so much. It's been so it. That's why I don't think that the suffering is infinite and the healing is infinite, because if you talk about healing, then you're talking about trauma. If you're talking about healing, then you're talking about the pain of past mistreatments. By its very definition, it cannot be infinite. Consciousness is infinite, yes, but your pain, your trauma is not, because there's a finite amount of things that have happened to you which you still haven't processed, haven't allowed yourself to actually feel through. And so the mind started coming up with
So,
lies.
do the subtleties get so subtle that eventually it just dissolves?
Yeah, I think so. It gets subtler, it's subtler, it's subtler. So in the beginning, and coming back to your question about spiritual plateaus, people stagnate on this process because ego is always protective. So it's hard to even step on this process, because once you step on this process, you have to deal with your shit. Basically, you have to deal with your pain. You have to deal with the ways in which in your life in which you are cruel and callous towards yourself and harsh towards yourself, in which you are cruel and callous towards others and harsh toward others, in which you are judgmental towards yourself and judgmental towards others. You have to deal with it all, and it's unpleasant to see. Just like it is unpleasant to realize that you have been abused and you thought it was normal. It's also unpleasant to realize that you have been abusive and you thought it was normal. You know, and so even to step on the path is actually difficult, but at every stage on the path, uh, the ego tries to convince you not to kind of go further, because on the path further is always further into the pain, or
Mm,
whatever pain is left, and then after the pain there's more love, relaxation, beauty, bliss. So that's why people plateau. So people plateau because they get to a stage where it's good enough. There may be some significant changes compared to how it was before. So they're kind of happy. They're much more content than how they were before, but they want to go further. They kind of rest there, so to speak. So yeah.
Hey, in simple words, what exactly is it are we doing here? Like, what are we doing? What's going on here?
Life.
All right.
They're living. It's life. Life is adventure. Life is a game. It's a game of experience.
So like all this spirituality stuff, what is it though? Like what are we doing here?
You are living your life, and what you call spirituality is a way, a set of tools and practices to allow you to deal with your suffering, and as a consequence live a fuller life.
Mm,
You see, so spirituality is about stop hiding from life and embracing life in its
mm.
completeness, in its fullness.
Okay.
And that's what makes it so beautiful, because the more you are suffering, the more you are seeking something other than yourself, the more you're trying to also to escape from your pain into some coping mechanisms and addictions and stuff, the more you're missing out on life. You're missing out on everything that it has to offer. Because oftentimes the things that are extremely exciting and extremely fulfilling and wonderful in life, but you don't want to do them because you're scared of what other people will think of you. Of maybe you're scared of failure or something like that. You don't want to try it because, oh my God, what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And so the ultimate goal of spirituality is to get to a place where enjoyment of life is so complete, it is so all encompassing that every day is a miracle.
Wow, okay. Deep. Thank you, man.
Thanks for coming.
Hey, this was life changing. You changed my life, man.
I'm very glad.
I'm about to go meditate for 10 hours now and
Yeah.
take 10
Great.
tabs. No, I'm joking. Hey, thank you, man. For real.
My pleasure, my friend. My pleasure. It was good speaking to you. All right. So, Tilak. Hi.
Hi, Artem. Um, I have something I'm curious about, but I don't know exactly how to formulate one concise question to get into it. But I have a question that I think will lead into what I'm curious about.
Okay.
Do you think it's useful to see the body as a biocomputer, specifically when it comes to storing in memory the old traumas and then also processing it? So those aspects of a computer, do you think it's useful to see the human body as such?
I think the most important question is: do you feel that it's useful for you? Does it help you?
Yes, it does.
Then
It
you
does.
answered. Then you answered your question.
Yeah, but okay. Um, can you answer it for yourself? Like for you, do you find it useful?
Uh, I will, but I want to. But I want to preface it with kind of a warning not to take my attitude towards it and make it yours, because everybody's an individual. We all have individual beliefs. We have form individual relationship with concepts, and we describe reality in a unique way, using a unique set of words. So we might even be talking about the very same thing, but using different words. And if you use the words biological computer to describe what is going on, and it helps you get more clarity. It helps you stay grounded. It helps you understand what's going on the level of the mind and surrender to what's going on. Then it's great. And if I tell you that I didn't do it and you're like, okay, Artem didn't do it, then I shouldn't, then this is just nonsense. So to me, personally, uh, I certainly understand that the body is a biological computer. There's no question about it, and I understood it pretty early. But I wouldn't say that I understood it with regards to suffering, right? But just generally, the whole, like, the body is an extraordinary complex biological machine that works without your participation, like without the participation of the ego completely, and it works perfectly, and it knows what it's doing. You never have to stop and ask yourself, how is it that I'm breathing, or how is it that my blood gets filtered? It's like, it just works. It's extraordinary. The body is sentience, but looking at, if you look at it as a computer, in the way that it kind of stores suffering, or is conditioned by suffering, uh, I personally have never done that. I kind of, I mean, you can look at the mind this way. So, I mean, it is difficult for me to look at something like this as a biological computer. But again, I mean, first of all, if it helps you do that, then secondly, our relationship. I don't know. Are you in software engineering by any chance?
Um, a little bit, yeah.
A little
There's,
bit, right?
yeah.
So I was a professional software engineer, and I uh, worked as a software engineer for like 25 years. So our relationships to terms, even like computer, is very, very different. Like, for example, uh, there are a lot of uh, people on the journey who talk about quantum spirituality. They use the words quantum all the time to describe the infinite nature of awareness, or the infinite potentiality and things like that. If they were talking to a actual quantum physicist, they probably wouldn't find common language at all,
Mhm.
right? So whatever concept helps you to surrender deeper to the experience, use that. It really doesn't matter.
Right. So that wasn't the main question. I guess the
Okay.
main question, I guess I can formulate now, is it's around what the nature of the path is, right? So, using the computer analogy,
Okay.
once you've, you know, brought into conscious memory all the pain and trauma that was stored, and then you've processed it, now you've sort of emptied your hard drive out in a way. And I think using your model, that's what you call enlightenment. When the ego has basically dissolved, you've emptied out the old conditionings and traumas that were there present in your body, let's say. But then my question would be, since we are not closed systems, we can then take on the the files or traumas of other people or other biocomputers.
Uh, how do you figure that happening? How do you take on someone else's trauma?
by
Just
feeling by feeling by like
like,
you
what?
through like resonance, through maybe like
So what makes you think that it's not yours? What makes you think that the resonance? What makes you think that the energy that you're feeling is not yours, but it belongs to someone else? In other words, what makes you think that if you feel in the presence of another person, if you feel their trauma in your body, what makes you think that it's not yours?
I think you can't conclusively say it's not yours, but you can have an educated guess based upon if it came from an experience that you had in this lifetime or if it's coming from their vessel, let's say.
Well, give me an example.
um I mean,
Should be
like,
easy.
huh?
I mean, if it should be easy.
Okay. I mean, if someone's telling you about like their rape trauma or something, and you've
Okay.
never been raped,
Okay.
but you're able to
And
like feel their pain and be the presence in which that pain
yes. So
enters and then gets processed.
okay. So what kind of pain do you feel? Like, do you feel compassion? Do you cry for them, or maybe do you feel the pain of being violated? You feel the pain of being made, uh, of your body being used. What kind of pain would you feel in this scenario?
Can you not use the faculty of imagination to really, really feel what their pain is beyond what you have experienced and how it relates to your life?
But that would still be you. There was the imagination would still be yours,
Okay.
and the pain that you would be feeling would still be yours.
Okay.
That's good to feel the pain of other people, but it is directed. It is connected to the pain, to your pain in a very direct way. Both as a kind of, if you look at it from one side, when you actually feel what it's like to be in a situation like that, and you feel like you're suffering with them, or from a side of compassion, when the realization of how much you're suffering makes you cry for them.
Mhm.
Both of them are good experiences that open your heart,
Okay.
but both of them are actually created by the mind, and both of them are connected to the suffering in your body, because it's you that is feeling that.
Okay. So tying it back into your model of enlightenment, would you not feel pain when they're expressing their pain to you?
B- so in my experience, the mo- the more I process, the less the mind is disturbed by the pain of others. Yes. So in initially, it was also very energetic, and so, like, for example, I could cry when someone would be telling about their suffering, or the feeling they're suffering directly actually uh, is a step before the compassion. So you keep crying out of compassion even after you stop feeling the suffering directly. Uh, and I still cry from time to time out of compassion when I hear people's stories. But the deeper I go, the less and less the mind is disturbed.
The less it's disturbed, but you still feel the pain.
Well, compassion is not pain for me, and tears is not pain for me. No, I don't feel the pain of other people's directly. That's been like 5 or 7 years ago. That was like 5 or 7 years ago.
So you're saying their pain is only mentally constructed, like it's only mentally constructed, and you've already dissolved
To
that
me,
faculty within yourself that even feels that.
uh, if you like, you cannot strictly speaking feel the pain of others. That it's an illusion. It feels this way. It feels this way, but it's also your own pain.
Mhm. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So like, for example, uh, like you have to get, you see, you have to get some exposure to suffering to even understand that. So if you were brought up in a paradise where no one ever touches each other, no one ever rapes each other, no one ever kills each other, and everyone is like very nice, it would be difficult for you to even understand what the other person is talking about. But by the virtue of being alive, and especially by the virtue, in quotes, of being raised in this society, you do have exposure of what it feels like to be violated, of what it feels like to be made to do certain things, of what it feels like when you are not free to do with your body as you want, and someone takes control of your body. It may not be as extreme as getting raped, but that's the basis of compassion, because you also understand that in this situation, it would be horrible for you if you were if you never understood, if you were, sorry, never even in a remotely similar situation, you would lack capacity to even to understand what it's like. You see? So your capacity to understand what it's like comes from your own experience. The degree can vary. The degree of the pain you have experienced can vary, but the capacity to understand the pain of others and to move you to tears or to feel it as if it was yours is informed fundamentally by your experience, of the past.
Yeah, I think maybe I just have more like mystical notions where in the present you can directly access their
So
mind.
that's actually good, and that's happening. You can look at it in the mystical way, and that's actually happening in your mind. Everything is mind, and this is also mind. So it's happening in your mind. So if you can kind of in the presence of this person directly access their experience, and feel their pain or feel your compassion for their experience, that's actually opening up of the heart. That's the continued process of integration.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's why I always say, like, when people say to me, I start feeling other people's pain, I say, great, do that, lean into that. That is still your process of integration.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Because you see, the interesting thing about it is that it's still happening in your mind. Because if it was actually happening in reality, you can look at it from the mystical perspective, but it was actually happening in reality, then first of all, you wouldn't be able to like cry or have a painful experience by watching a movie that is depicting such events, because everyone is actors there and it didn't really happen, right? It can depict, well, it can depict some true events, but it can depict a completely imaginary set of events and you would still cry, right? And also, if you were speaking to a real life individual, or let's say watching a video on YouTube or Instagram of a real life individual describing their deep pain, and then you also would cry and or feel their pain, or shed some tears of compassion for them, then it would heal them as well. So it's, but it doesn't happen. So it's very, it is a very strange kind of thing, because uh, it is still happening in your mind. It is related to the other, but it is still happening in your mind, and you are still healing, even though phenomenologically it may feel like you experiencing other people's emotions and energies directly. But you know how all spiritual masters speak about aloneness, including myself. So the truth is that you're alone, and all energy in your body and in your mind is your own energy, even when it feels like it's coming from another person directly.
Okay, so based upon what you've just said, that's why it's hard for me to definitively get behind the model that there is an end to enlightenment. There is a point at which there is no more suffering to process.
Yes, because within your current view, uh, every exposure to other person's suffering, right? So how can you ever reach the end of suffering with other suffering people living,
Mhm.
right?
Right, yeah.
And that kind of this is also the view that is somewhat expressed. I think it's connected to the Bodhisattva's view, right? So in the ultimate reality, that's actually not an accurate view. So that would mean that's a view frequently taken by people, right? But that would mean that uh, only collective enlightenment is possible. Basically, you can only be enlightened for as long as no one around you suffers. But this actually cannot be an accurate view, because uh, this is basically a view that is still based on exposure to suffering, right, rather than the actual existence of suffering. We can say, okay, like the whole earth is enlightened, okay, but what if there's another planet and then there are some other people suffering? Well, you don't suffer only because you don't know of it, but what if you did? You see, so it's like in the infinite universe with the infinite number of living beings, then you would never be able to stop suffering. So it's not actually quite accurate view.
Well, I mean, that is the truth, though. I mean, I think the Buddha view that I think you have has a lot of contradictions in it. You know, it says, you know, there's only one mind, but then there's different people, and you consider yourself the body, and then there's
Well, there's only one mind in my reality, just like there's only one mind in yours.
Mm-hmm.
You see.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the question is to what extent the mind is integrated, to what extent the mind is healthy. So a healthy, integrated mind doesn't carry the suffering of the past.
Yeah, but it can process the suffering of the present.
Yes, but it processes very quickly.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah, but it still processes suffering, and I think I don't know if you've included that in your
But
mind.
if you qualify someone telling you their story from the past as processing suffering from the present, that's a stretch. Processing suffering from the present would be like, for example, if you're a zebra and you see with your own eyes how a lion eats another zebra right in front of you, then there would be some fear. Of course, there would be some. I mean, it's part of life.
Okay.
But you're telling about something else. You're telling me that like your mind receiving information about past suffering creates suffering.
Well, it's exactly what you said. You're in the present moment. You are processing past suffering, but that doesn't disqualify you from being what you call enlightened.
It's a question of terminology.
Yeah.
Right. So what I call I call that self-realization. What I call complete enlightenment is when the past suffering is no longer processed because it has been processed. So the present, so the suffering from the past has been dealt with, basically.
Yeah, but what about the past and other people? That hasn't been dealt with yet.
But it's the past of the other people is your present. Actually, it's not like you haven't lived the life. That's what I meant when I say what's happening is, right, so when someone tells you their story about the past, what's happening is that in your present,
Yeah.
you're receiving information about someone suffering from the past.
Okay.
So the only reason that it hurts is because your past hasn't been completely dealt with.
Okay. Yeah. I'll contemplate.
It will it you can contemplate it, but it's actually not even needed. What you're doing is the right thing to do. So feeling suffering that is coming from any direction, if if it comes from a direction of another person, then so be it. If it feels like you're feeling the suffering of another person directly, so be it. You see, because in your experience there's an energy, there's a direct emotional energy of suffering, whether it's pain or compassion or something else, and then there's a story around it. And the story is in the present. I'm feeling this pain, the pain of the other person. Some people have a story of literally, I'm healing this other person. I've had those stories too. So I've had those experiences too, where I would feel the suffering of everybody, where I would feel the suffering of other people directly. But that's just a story. In truth, you kind of don't know. We're discussing, basically, we're discussing whether to believe the story of your mind or not. Because the only thing that we really know is that there's an energy, there's a painful energy, or there's like an energy of compassion, the energy of love. That's the only thing that you really know, because it is in your direct experience. It is felt in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we're discussing, like it's coming from another person or it's coming from not another person, that's just an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an explanation for that energy. So I say it's related, it's still related to your past. You say no, the other person just gave it to me. I mean, from my perspective, my explanation makes more sense. From your perspective, your explanation makes more sense. But none of that denies the actual experience. The actual experience is undeniable. And whatever is undeniable needs your acceptance and needs your attention. So regardless of whether the frameworks change, the frameworks keep changing on the path. Adyashanti once said, there is no teaching that can be universally applied to any position of the past. I actually somewhat disagree, but if there is one, then it would look like feel this shit, basically. So regardless of what the story is about the energetic, painful experience, you still need to give yourself permission to feel it. And then the framework about what you're going through and about the nature of reality will change along the path many times.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, thanks for entertaining this kind of weird abstract question. Thank
Sure
you.
thing. Right. It was good talking to you, my friend. Okay, so let me take a look at some of the questions. Like there are some questions. Okay, so Adam Toth is asking. Hold on. Adam Toth is asking, Dear Artem, I practice giving direct attention to my feelings as you advised, and it helped me a lot in getting to know myself better and regulate my emotions a lot more in an allowing way. Wonderful. Although I still feel that I am in this witness awareness mode, I still kind of dissociating from my emotions to an extent. I'm not escaping into awareness and aim to allow, yet I feel less in a way. Am I doing something wrong, or should I just persist with the practice? Thank you very much. The most important question here is that, do you feel less in a way because you are hiding from it? And one can hide in awareness witness, and that's why it's gonna it can be spiritual bypassing to identify with awareness witness, or you allow it to, the emotion to run through the awareness, so to speak, to be completely absorbed by awareness, to be completely allowed to resolve. So do you take it into resolution, basically? And it is actually normal to start feeling less and less as we process through the pain. But it's important not to confuse it with running away or stopping. So what I can recommend is that when you go through this process, try to be observant of what exactly is going on as the emotion runs its course. So do you actually allow yourself to feel it to completion? So you can even say to yourself, more, I want more. I don't want to stop. Like, is it everything? I want more. Or there's some kind of a process where you it arises, and then something happens, and you either like run away into awareness or witness, or there's some movement in your body, something in your consciousness that kind of stops it. They kind of say, nope, I don't want to. Nope, that's enough. So that's the only thing that you should be concerned about, actually. So if you allow all emotional experience come to complete resolution, when you don't want anything anymore, not because it's hurt, but not because it hurts, not in a kind of a running away way, but in a more of a kind of contentment way. You have kind of completely content and relaxed into it, this particular emotional experience. Then you're doing it right, even if you start feeling less with time. So that's normal to actually start feeling some things less in time, because we on the path we're dealing with a past pain. So as we discussed previously. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, so it says that our Twitter feed has been broken. Interesting. Anyway, so Kalori says, Dear Artem, on mushrooms I experienced a lot of crying and then intense love. Wonderful. Not so much fear. Generally on the spiritual path, meditation, it is mostly sadness for me and despair. I've had existential fear as well, but it was never as much as the sadness. Does that mean that most of my fear is still ahead of me, or do the amounts of certain emotions differ from person to person? Should I take higher doses of mushrooms or maybe bring up more fear? I have taken 2.5, 3.5 grams so far. Thank you. So generally, if you suspect that something is still ahead of you, it is. The question of, is most of my fear ahead of you, is a kind of a not very important question. I mean, it's hard to measure, like most, not most, more, less. But if you have a suspicion, if you have an intuition that there is more fear in the system, then there is. But it's important not to kind of put your experience in a framework of, okay, so where is the fear? I need more fear. That's not an important thing. If right now you're dealing with sadness, if right now you're dealing with despair, deal with what is. It's always good to learn to deal with whatever's present, not try to imagine that if it was something else, it would be better. Like, for example, you're dealing with sadness and despair, and you're thinking, oh, but if there would also be some fear, it would be more productive. Like, don't worry about these things. Will there be more fear? Yes, of course there would. There would be. Fear is one of the last things to go away. If there's sadness, despair, anger, there's also fear. Will you experience it if you take higher doses of mushrooms? You probably will. Is it very important to take higher doses of mushrooms? Not really. If you feel like what you're doing right now is productive, if you feel like what you're doing right now is releasing, it takes some integration. You feel more content. It changes your perspective on life. It changes you. Like, you feel that you're moving along nicely. Don't worry about it. Even on the same dose, sooner or later, if there's more fear to feel, you will start feeling it. So, but if you feel like you want a more intense experience, and you can take a more intense experience, and you kind of you yearn to try to go a little deeper, then absolutely you can take a higher dose. Just like, don't do anything crazier. So if you kind of ordinary doses, like 2.5, 3.5 grams of mushrooms, you can try like taking 5 or something, or 4.5 or something like this, and then see what happens. It might be the same with more intensity, or it might be something else. They are actually quite unpredictable. Okay, Ali says, is it possible that during the spiritual awakening process, especially after self-realization, we might create new conditionings or emotional sufferings, or is it all conditioning and emotional pain we experience solely rooted in the past? Um, it is possible. It is possible that you can create more pain to go through after realization by doing stupid things. So by acting in a hateful way, by acting against yourself or against other people, it's quite possible. What much more frequently happens, though, is the amount of this pain that you create uh, after a abiding self-realization is quite modest compared to the amount of pain that is still there from the deep past. And so, but the ego kind of a shapeshifter, you see, so those pain can kind of morph and mutate and now apply to different situations in life. So the stories around it can change, but the same fundamental pain or the same fundamental suffering can manifest in different ways. It can manifest differently than it was in the dream state. And so you can mistaken it by thinking, oh, okay, so that's the new pain I created. But in reality, it's the old pain manifested in a different way with a different story in different circumstance. Most of it is like that, I would say. You can, of course, do really silly things and create pain, but even in this case, it would still be rather modest compared to. So, in my experience, the amount of pain that we carry is quite significantly striking. And if you're dreaming, if you were ever seeking, it means there's quite a significant amount, and quite a lot of it was there from very early days. So that's why people experience, for example, pain that is impossible to describe without a story. Like it feels like pre-verbal. We actually even started we start accumulating it even before we learn to speak. So, but it is, strictly speaking, it is possible. Yes. H says, "Is it possible to stop caring about what other people think about me before naturalization? If so, how?" Interesting question. To be honest with you, I don't think so. I think it's possible to pretend, and it's possible to pretend that it doesn't matter to you, and it's also possible to internalize the social messages to such an extent that you think it's all yours. So basically, it's possible to live the life as if you don't care about what other people think of you at all, but you care a lot about what you think of yourself. But in reality, what you think of yourself is what is also what society kind of brainwashed you and taught you to think of yourself and to think at what's important and not. So I think it is possible to kind of create this kind of shell, and it's also possible to create some kind of mechanisms and have some kind of tools and mechanisms that help you to deal with this. So this question reminds me of Stoicism. So if you're in something like Stoicism, then that's kind of very much what uh, similar uh, to this question. But to authentically really be completely independent, uh, complete independence and complete aloneness is one and the same thing. So I don't think it's possible now. Bay Tropolis is asking, "Hey Artem, what's the difference experientially between what you call full enlightenment and self-realization?" So to me, self-realization is, of course, it's realization of consciousness awareness. Is basically the realization that all that you can only experience yourself, so that you have only been experiencing yourself, and all experiences your experience. It also coincides with the realization of oceanic consciousness, in which all experiences happen. So it's a rather deep state of consciousness. The difference between that and what I call full enlightenment is when in this oceanic consciousness, the pain from the past are no longer arises. So it's like in other spiritual traditions, they say that there's realization and then there's a process of alignment, of purification. They call it like clearing of some scars, or I don't know as much of the spiritual literature. But what happens after self-realization is the purification of mind, or clearing out of the remaining conditioning. What self-realization allows, though, is that this realization that all experience is your experience, and you can only experience yourself, makes looking at the suffering from the past inherently safe, or even looking at the suffering from other people inherently safe. So it really changes our relationship to suffering, and it makes the path to what I call enlightenment possible. Okay, the cute dancer is saying, I am cold approaching girls nowadays because I want lots of sexual experience, but emotions come up during approaches such as shame and anger and intense feelings that I'm doing something weird. I don't know if I should keep doing this. Is it a good practice as I face many facets of myself, or am I feeding my ego and doing really something wrong? Uh, I cannot answer this question without knowing you. So I suggest you maybe schedule a one-on-one session with me, and then we can discuss it. I don't know. So I need to know you. I can tell you that there's nothing fundamentally shameful about liking someone and talking to them, uh, but also it's not good for you to manipulate them. So it really depends on how you're doing that, and I would rather speak to you. Which, by the way, reminds me, I forgot to tell everybody, and let me also post the link here. So please feel free to schedule one-on-one sessions with me. We have so here's the link. It's calendly.com/true freedom teaching. So we have different tiers depending on your level of income, and you can schedule one-on-one sessions. We can do inquiry with you. This works usually much better than watching satsangs. And also, I would like to ask you to please, if you are in a position to do so, please also support my work. So the link is over here. Please become my patron on Patreon or donate via PayPal. So this helps me to pay my bills. And if you are already supporting my work, I'm very grateful to you. Thank you very much. But if you don't, please consider this. This would allow me to create more content and work with people who cannot pay. So in the one-on-one sessions, there we also have a free option and the $25 option. So some people cannot afford to pay, and by donating, you also help me work with those people. So let's see what else. Let's see. Okay, Anna's asking me to talk about a little bit about envy and jealousy. I would, but it's been already an hour and a half. Let's try to do it next time. I can just tell you that it's kind of difficult. You say it's kind of difficult when you process and releasing these heavy emotions to see successful people around me. Yes, I'll just say a couple of words. Yes, it's kind of difficult. The thing is that what you're actually witnessing is the illusion of the mind. So your mind is telling you that if you were this successful people, then you would be happy. The truth is that you don't know. You don't know. They may look successful and smiling, but you don't know what's happening on the inside. You don't know. Maybe they could be more miserable than you, actually. So you are seeing the harshness of your own mind. You basically, you are not happy, and then the mind says, oh, you're not happy because you are successful. Oh, but look at this guy. You're worse than him. You're worse than her. Look at this woman. She's more beautiful than you, for example, or more successful than you, and that's why you're not happy, because you are failing. That's actually a very harsh narrative. So the reason that this emotion, that it's not like seeing other people who are successful is painful. It's the comparing yourself and berating yourself for not being someone else than you are is painful. You see, and the amount to which those successful people are happy would correspond to the amount of how much their mind is doing that. And it's completely unrelated to their situation in life. You can be like a billionaire, and then the mind would do absolutely the same thing compared to like deca billionaires or something, you know. And people who are very rich and successful oftentimes are very miserable just because of that. They just find, the mind just finds new people to compare you with, uh, because the fundamental reason for these comparisons is the unresolved pain, is the lack of self-love, is the beliefs that you need to earn love, that you need to do something better, that you need to achieve something, that you by yourself, you being alive is not enough, basically. Just you being you living is not enough to be happy. So there's a fundamental belief of unworthiness, of there being something wrong with you, that gives rise to those comparisons, and that's the pain that you're experiencing. Ultimately, it's an illusion. You don't know, you have no idea what it would be like to be this other person. People pretend very well to be happy. So uh, um, Joe posted, what we're doing here, the best way I've heard you address this, Artem, is you cannot know anything about reality, you can only be reality. Yes, that's also true. Okay, what else? Caesar says, hi, Artem. I'm currently struggling with capacity to sit with uncomfortable feelings. I've been experiencing severe DPDR for years due to trauma. How can I develop capacity to sit with those emotions? Thank you. Slowly, slowly, baby steps. So every time some overwhelming emotion comes up, uh, take time to yourself, and kind of remind yourself that it's difficult. Remind yourself that you need compassion now, understanding, and love. You can hug yourself if you wish to, and slowly just stay with it. Stay with it for as long as you can. And there is no failure in this process. Even if you like run away from it, it's okay. It's okay. You just take whatever you can. If you feel the need to distract yourself from it, if it's absolutely very, very difficult and you cannot not do it, it's okay. Don't like berate yourself for not being able to sit with a very difficult emotion. That's why it's difficult. But slowly, it's a practice. So it's a practice. It takes time. It takes time and patience. Be patient with yourself. What you need when you practice it is not the harshness. What you need in this practice, when you're practicing it, is not uh, evaluation, but what you need is patience, understanding, and love. So be patient towards yourself, be compassionate towards yourself, and slowly. There are some grounding techniques. Breath is a very good grounding technique. So don't forget, when it gets very, very difficult, don't forget to breathe. So remind yourself that you're breathing, you're alive. Take your awareness into the breath itself. You can rest there. You can maybe touch your hands together. Remind yourself, when you're dealing with a very, very difficult emotion, sometimes it feels like this emotion is the only thing that exists in your experience. And so it can be helpful to remind yourself that other things also exist. Like, so you're still breathing, that there's still bodily sensation. You can take a walk. That's what a grounding technique is. It basically is a reminder that there is something else in your experience right now than this thing that is so up front and center, or so like visible right now, so overwhelming. So slowly, and again, I don't think that we have talked before, but please schedule a one-on-one session with me if you wish to discuss it. So hold on, let me take a look. Okay. Okay, so now we almost done. It's been already an hour and 35 minutes, but I'm gonna bring up James real quick. Hi, James.
Hi, Artem. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So, my question revolves around the feeling of got it and lost it. And I think that
Uh,
you've spoken about this before.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that this is a common and pretty much universal
yes.
thing. And I just wondered if you have any, like, very sort of concise commentary or an explanation of this, of like there must be some reason that this is happening to like everyone who engages in authentic spirituality.
Do you want advice or explanation of why it is so common?
I think I want advice.
Okay, so so the interesting thing about losing it is because is trying to find it. So trying to find it in itself prevents it. Because if you weren't trying to find it, you wouldn't even describe it as losing it. If you have lost it, then you started looking again.
Yeah.
There's nothing to look for. So basically, recognize this, acknowledge this, remind yourself that you cannot force it. You cannot think your way through it, and you cannot find it because there's nothing to find. So acknowledge the seeking as it happens and simply witness it. So simply acknowledge, oh, okay, I'm looking for it.
Yeah.
That's
Cool.
all you need to do. And also, after you've done it, it would be a good idea to also say, well, is there anything that I'm feeling in my body that is uncomfortable? And that's why I started seeking for something. That's why I started to search for something. That might be a good also exercise. And then once you acknowledge that the seeking has started, just like, oh, look, I'm seeking, sort of step out of the mind, just become witness of the seeking, and then look at the body, see what's happening in the body.
So seeking necessarily means that there's something uncomfortable that you're denying.
Not necessarily, but I mean, in the absolute terms, yes, of course. So like, because if we take the absolute view, then yes, as I say, if there weren't any pain, there would be no question of enlightenment. It wouldn't be possible to seek, like no one. So in the absolute sense, yes, of course, if you're seeking for something, that means there are but sometimes it is very readily consciously available. So all you need to do is to start looking. All you need to do is to kind of recognize that you're seeking and look at the body, start scanning at the body, because you just lost in the mind, and oftentimes it's an escape from what is happening in the body. So you just unconsciously start seeking for something to resolve some displeasure, some discomfort that is going on right now. Sometimes it's just not consciously accessible. So kind of all you may look at the body and everything is fine, but there's still like frantic activity of the mind. So you just become the witness of it. Just let the thoughts come and go. Just become the witness of the thoughts. I would say that usually in most cases, if you look at the body, you will find it.
Right. Well, I'm glad you added that second part, because that question got raised for me as well. So.
Great.
Wonderful. Well,
Right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it a great deal.
Thank you. Okay, so last we have Maxime, and we're going to wrap up. Hi, Maxime.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm good. How are you? Good. Just wanted to say hi very quickly, and tomorrow is next week is a big week for me, so I'm waiting for some job offers. So I wanted to have your blessings.
You always have my blessings.
I know. Yeah. All right.
Good luck.
Cool. Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Good.
I'll let you know.
Good to see you. Good to see you,
Bye.
buddy. Love you. Bye.
Love you.
All right, so that's it for today. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Once again, please support me if you can. Thank you for everybody who is already doing this. Thank you for your questions. We are going to meet again in a couple of weeks. And also feel free to join the Discord community and on my retreats. So it was great seeing you all. It was great talking to you. Hopefully, I'll see you guys soon. Love you all very much. Best of luck to you in the spiritual path. Bye bye.